We don't hear. We can't hear you.
Same here.
Are you not able to hear?
No.
Now we can, but not the Prabhupada audio, Prabhu.
Oh, let me reshare again because I thought I shared the music computer audio. Let me share again. Include computer sound. Did you say yes?
Yes, it worked. That worked.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Banachari Banachari Bihari Girivardhari Girivardhari Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Banachari.
I think again
We lost the audio again, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hope you can
Hare
hear me
Krishna.
well and also see my screen.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Continuing our discussion on Chapter 3, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. I believe we completed until verse number 29, and then we'll continue on from verse 30. This in our last discussion, we talked about last couple of verses where Krishna is essentially saying is that, well, one is that one should perform the duties without any fruitive motives, and it is important not just for one's own sake, but especially those who are in important positions, like the leaders, though they should do it just to set an example. So he gives the example of Janak Maharaj, right? So he achieved perfection just by simply executing his duties, but since he was a well-known king, right, by his examples people emulated. And on the flip side, Krishna is saying that, well, if I do not do, if the leaders do not act properly, if they do not do their duties, right, then people will simply emulate that behavior as well, and then the leaders become the cause of ruination of the society, right? But what is the difference? The difference is between a fruity person with a fruity mentality and that person who is a devotee or one who is in knowledge. That those who are in knowledge, they act without attachment, right? For the sake of leading people on the right path. While ignorant, they perform duties while being attached to the results. But in due course of time, they will also be able to overcome. That's why those who are intelligent, they should not disturb the minds of those people who might be engaged by fruity motives. So we should not say, hey, why you're doing with fruity motives, right? We should not discourage them. Of course, we can encourage them to at least be on a moral platform, a dharmic platform. Though they might be fruitively inclined, they should not be engaged in vikarma or sinful activities. At least, as long as that is there, learned man engages them in all kind of activities, right, according to their nature within the dharmic platform. So the ignorant person might think that one himself is the doer of the activities, right? But actually these activities, they are carried out by the three modes of nature. Right, we discussed up until verse 29, right? Or was it 27?
Actually 27, Prabhuji.
Okay, yeah, so it's a similar conversation. So in 27 it says, because of the false ego, person thinks that one himself is the doer, when actually the activities are carried out by the three modes of nature. And we discussed in detail last time what are the 5 factors of the action, right? So the person himself, the false ego, by which we assume a false identity, and that false identity is considered the actual doer, but that it's not just that person's instruments, which are part of their own body, for instance senses or the extended instruments, is another factor. The sincerity and the frequency of effort, that is another factor, right? Then the place and the circumstances, another factor, right? And then the time, which is an agent for conducive and non-conducive activities. Certain kind of activities are best done at a certain time. There's a favorable time for everything. So if you don't time it right, then we might also not be successful. So you see, there are so many factors that affect, right? Just by even if one is not learned in shastras, one who is really intelligent knows that, well, there are so many other factors responsible for my success, right? Many times you see interviews of successful people, and if person is really humble and has really understood and analyzed things, then you'll see a lot of people, they acknowledge that, well, there's so many intelligent people, so many hardworking people, so I cannot claim that I am myself the cause of the success. And they would say my second grade teacher was a contributor, my parents were contributor, the people who gave me the first break in my job or business were the contributors, my mentor who coached me was a contributor, right? The books from which I gained knowledge were written by others who were the contributors. So by simple analysis also one can see that one is not the doer. And then at a metaphysical level, Sankhya level also, we can see that, hey, all these 5 factors that I mentioned, they can all further broken down into 24 elements, or each of those 24 elements are comprised of the 3 modes of nature, which is what we discussed in light. So in this creation of the Lord is ternary, just like the digital world, everything is zeros and ones, including the operating system, the softwares that they run on the operating system, as well as the files consumed by those softwares. All of that is zeros and ones. Similarly, in the creation of the Lord, the identity of the physical body, right, is composed of 3 modes of nature. The other factors or instruments which help us, they are also composed of 3 modes of nature. And the actual objects which we consume, or which we leverage, right, through those instruments are also composed of three modes of nature. So in this way, all these activities are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature. The another way to look that is the understanding of causality. The Vedic view of causation is very different from the material view, and I believe had compiled Excel spreadsheet. Theory, it's a good idea to go over it. Let me just pull it out. Vedic theory. Yeah, Vedic view of causality. Hopefully, I'll recollect what this was. Drafted this quite some time ago. Yeah, so see, if you look at the empiric is the current worldview, right? Science, which is not wrong, science, but their view is very empirical. It means what you can see, perceive, something tangible, and that's how they build. They base. They start from observations, right, and they build models on top of it. But there are loopholes. With that approach, you cannot completely capture the entire reality. So, in the contemporary worldview, what they the conception is that there is matter, right, and then the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, or even at subtler level, after the Big Bang, all the primordial matter, it combined to create different reactions and processes, right? So they say matter is the cause of everything. And then matter, it combines and then it creates different reactions and processes, or different systems in which all these processes, the ecosystem could be an ecosystem or could be even a localized system like a body. A body is a system which comprises of all these processes, right? And in our body, a circulatory system, nervous system, all these systems, they are processes. And how are these processes happening? Well, they say, well, these processes are happening because of combination of matter. For instance, nerves, they are combination of different elements of matter. You see, so elements of matter combine to create processes, and aggregation of processes creates life or consciousness, right? So what is the idea, contemporary idea is that, well, it's the reactions, the chemical reactions, which are responsible for creating of consciousness. And now that we are conscious, right, and there is active life form, so we are the cause of the events, right? I am the doer. That's what that verse is saying, right? And I am the doer. I am the cause of the actions and the consequences. So consciousness is the cause of events. That's what they think. But see, each of them has a loopholes. We'll talk about the loopholes later. It might be very extended, but I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'll share this spreadsheet. Yeah, so they ignore the fact that, say, everyone does not have equal opportunities, right? And even those who have equal opportunities, everyone does not succeed, right? So there are so many other factors, but they ignore that and they think I am the cause. And then they have this idea that, well, the time interval between those events, right? Between I graduated and got my first job, or between I got my first job and I said 15 years later I was able to start my business, whatever, right? So time then just becomes simply a measurement of interval between those events, and so time has no causal role. It's only a perception, right? So this is the worldview. So this is the contemporary order of causality. The Vedic order of understanding of the causality is inverse. You don't start from Dravya, you start from Kala. So Kala decides the events. The events are already decided. Just like a script writer. He writes the script for a drama or a movie. But when the script writer writes the plot, the actors are not decided, right? He's simply saying this character, the name of the character is there, but who is going to act is not decided. So Kala, you can think of it like that. The sequence of events is already predetermined, but the players are not, right? Now, when Kala actuates certain events, it brings together different characters to play those parts. So they become apparent cause, right? Just like Krishna will tell to Arjuna later that, hey, these people that you see, when he shows his universal form, in this universal form, all these great warriors, they are already entering the mouth of of Vishnu, right? In his universal form, Virat Roop. And later on, he says, you saw, right? All these warriors, they are anyway, they are going to die. You are the immediate cause, right? So the Kala already decides the events, but the players are not. But according to karma and guna, karma defines eligibility. Just like, if you want, though anyone can play the part in a particular drama, right, or a script, the director would say, well, for this particular role, this character, I'll shortlist these 5 actors, because they are suited for this character. See, not everyone makes the mark. So now there is a shortlisting of who is eligible to perform the role of that character in those events. And then there is inclination also, eligibility and inclination. Like sometimes, the director really wants this person to act, or the producer, this particular actor to take up that character. So that person is eligible, but that person might not have interest. That, right? So guna means inclination. So karma and guna both has to match, right? So based on that, now that actor is assigned to that character. So consequences of previous actions or karma decides which individual will experience a specific event, right? That's why the experiences of everyone is not same, right? Even between middle of a pandemic, there are people who have flourished. Their wealth has increased multifold, though it is devastating for others. So everyone's experience is different, even within the same event. So consequences of previous action decides which individual will experience what event, and they will take up different characters. Then the life force or the individual consciousness is the cause of processes. Now that person who is acting, right, who is assigned that character, when that person acts, the person is the cause of processes, not that processes, the aggregation of different biological processes is the cause of the person. It's not, it's the other way around. What this means is that the agent, right, the apparent agent who is assigned the task of performing that particular character becomes the apparent cause, right? So right now they are blaming the Prime Minister of India, right, that he didn't use the available time when the cases were not there to vaccinate people, and they opened up for religious festivals and political rallies, right? So our independent choices that we make, they cause different activities, right? So that's the other way of looking at it. Now, of course, there are all those 5 factors which I mentioned, they are still applicable over here, right? So it's not that those 5 factors go away, but one of them is the outcome or the activities that happen, right? It's through an agent of a person. Though the events are already decided, it's not that events are not decided, events are decided, that fact is still true, but the person becomes an agent in the outcome of those processes. And so processes then are cause of the manifestation of matter, and as the processes are occurring, it's simply like another way to think of that is the person who is performing the drama, they use different kind of props, right? So the props, the script play is first decided, right? Then the characters are assigned, right? Then the person is acting, And when a person is acting, different actions manifest. And during the manifestation of those actions, they might use different props. So, for instance, right, if they are using a sword, right, it's already, kind of arranged for that person to, use that prop. And so the prop is just an after the fact kind of thing, right? The processes, they become the cause of manifestation of matter. Let me articulate it nicely. For instance, if there is a fighting scene, right, and when the two characters are fighting, to make that act realistic, right, they need something, and so they bring in different props, like they might use a sword. So the process of fighting is fixed, right? It's already there. That comes first. And therefore, that process to manifest actually and appear realistic, right? The matter, which is the prop, they are brought into the picture. So thus matter is thus the ultimate manifestation and not the cause. So another way to look at it is that life is the cause of matter and not matter the cause of life. Sometimes they say that, well, what's the difference between a living man and a dead man, right? Well, they say, well, when say the heart stops working or important organs of the body stop functioning. Well, why do they stop functioning? Well, then, if it is a natural death, then they would say that, well, the body was too old, right? Now the body ages differently for different people. Even people, sometimes they have similar lifestyle. Their bodies age very differently. Some they age early, some they age later. And sometimes you see people, they don't have any kind of, suppose the cause is that heart stopped working. Now the heart might be completely healthy all its life, right? It's not that they had a cardiac arrest. In some cases that could be the cause. But even if when there is, there is no cardiac arrest, it's just that heart stopped working. But what was different between the moment before and the moment after? So in the contemporary order of causality, well, they would say that some ingredient, the process stopped working, and something was missing, right? Some material cause by which the heart stopped working, and that's why the consciousness or the life ceased to exist. In the Vedic worldview, you say, well, actually, when the soul left the body, the heart stopped working. It's the other way around. As long as the soul is present. So life is the cause of matter, not that the matter is the cause of life. So you see, the order is different. So here in this order of causality, we think that we are the cause of events and the consequences. Consciousness is the cause of events. But the Vedic worldview is opposite to it. So here's clarification of some of those misconceptions. I won't go into that right now, but I'm happy to share this later if you want to go over it. Okay. Any questions on that before we begin? Maybe bring it up again. Anyone? Okay. We'll continue. There are no questions. So verse number 28. Tattvavittu mahabaho gunakarma vibhagayoh gunagunesu vartanta iti matva na sajjate. One who, translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: one who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. So this is person in knowledge, one who knows the reality, one who knows the higher purpose, one who knows that all kind of two persons apparently acting in exactly the same way, there is an ocean of difference. He knows that what is the work impelled by sense gratification and what's the work in devotion. And so when one knows something better, then one obviously does not engage in a lower mode of engagement. It's interesting, the words in Sanskrit used for senses and sense gratification. So if you look, sometimes you get more meaning when you look at the original. So here you see gunaha are senses. The word in here used is gunaha, and for sense gratification the word used is guneshu. So what it means, that the senses by which, the instruments by which we indulge in sense gratification or any kind of sense perception, they are made up of the three modes of nature. Guna is sattva guna, raja guna, tama guna. So here guna, the senses are made up of the three modes of nature, and the sense perceptions by which the sense objects, right, which are consumed by the senses, are also made up of the gunas, guneshu, right? It's a different form of the same root word guna. For instance, the eyes, which consume form. So eyes is the senses, the form is sense gratification. So that is guneshu. Similarly, tongue and taste, right? Then you have skin and touch, right? Ears, sound. So in this way, just like I was saying, that we have this application, right? I have a camera, right? This is an application, and then it consumes different objects, images, or stream of images, right? If it's in a video format, and that image could be anything, right? Right now it's streaming me talking, but I could put an object over here, or if I have a pet comes in and you see the pet in the video doing silly things, but the application still remains the same. But what is it? Both the application and the data that application consumes, it's all binary, zeros and ones. Similarly, the senses, they're all made up of three modes of nature, and the sense perceptions are also made up of the three modes of nature. So one who is in knowledge sees this world simply as reactions of the three modes of nature. Just like an engineer, if somebody is not so tech savvy, right, they look at these things and they look different variety in manifestations, which is true. I'm not saying the variety does not exist, but one who is really a techie, right, who does system level programming and knows all this in and out, they look at things differently, right? Though they are aware of all these varieties, they know that how this all zeros and ones, everything is made up of zeros and ones. How this image is loading, and sometimes when the image loads, it's grainy. So it's not, they say, well, there are different techniques by which images load. Well, they load it grainy and then slowly they improve the resolution. So that means, how would you structure the file definition? Well, you will first, in the first row will be all main pixels all across the frame. Instead of providing details of each pixel in one sequence before going to next pixel, if you code it in that way, what will happen is your first pixel will load in full resolution. Then the second pixel will load in full resolution. So your image, when it loads, will load one line by line. If it is a slow connection, you can see it. But it doesn't look nice. So they, in one sequence, when you look at the digital file, the definition of the first pixel is the basic essence of the first pixel is described without these specific details in maybe color, texture, not so much, right? And then they will move on to the next pixel, generic definition, and then towards the end of the file they will have more specific details of each pixel. So now when it loads, it appears loading very smoothly, right? So one who has studied in detail, they look at, based on how the application is working or acting, they can see what is happening in much more detail, right? A different perspective. Similarly, those who are situated in knowledge, versus those who are ignorant, they see so much variety in the nature, different life forms and different personalities, and you see other people that are engaged in sense gratification, and they are themselves engaging in sense gratification, but they don't understand the mechanisms. But person in his knowledge, they see, oh, there's all this variety. In essence, it's all just combination of the three modes of nature. They see how the senses are engaging in sense gratification, how that engagement is occurring, how the modes are the cause, how it's true for one's own self, true for others, what is the causation, what is the real cause, what is the apparent cause, what is the instrumental cause. So when they see things in from that perspective, when they understand how things are all manifesting, then they are not implicated in it, right? They understand what's the reality, and they know the higher cause, right? So, well, if this is all simply combination of the three modes, then what is reality? Reality is something beyond that, and so they engage. They don't get implicated in this arrangement of senses engaging in sense gratification. Rather, they take up the work in devotion for the higher cause. So here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning the knower of the absolute truth is convinced of his awkward position in material association. You see, it's a very powerful statement. So that is the difference between the ignorant man. The ignorant man does not know how the modes of the nature are acting, and so that person simply gets implicated. But one who really knows, that he's stuck in this matrix, right? You have all this, the modes acting. And so he knows that this position is awkward. I really don't belong. I am soul. I am not made up of three modes of nature. That is my real identity. But the false identity that I have assumed in terms of body, and my extended belongings and families and society, and this is all different manifestations of the modes of nature. And so he knows that this is an awkward position. He knows that he is a part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and that his position should not be in the material creation. That's an important distinction. He knows his real identity as part and parcel of the Supreme, who is eternal bliss and knowledge, Ananda and Chitta. And he realizes that somehow or other he is entrapped in this material conception of life. In his pure state of existence, he is meant to dovetail his activities in the devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He therefore engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness and becomes naturally unattached to the activities of material senses, which are circumstantial and temporary. So some understanding, of course, we don't have to become an expert in Sankhya, that is not required. But by simple analogies, it's not so difficult. So there's examples of the current technologies that we use, digital technology that everyone is familiar with. So I trying to give those analogies to understand. So even if somebody is not expert in Sankhya, by some of these examples, we can understand how the things are acting in reality. And when we see the truth, then it's easier for us to distance ourselves. He knows that this material condition of life is under the supreme control of the Lord. Consequently, he is not disturbed by the kinds of material reactions which he considers at the mercy of the Lord. So what is the causation? See here the cause. Who is the cause? See, all the material conditions of life are under the supreme control of the Lord. And time is an impersonal manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Later in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will say, Kalo asmi. I am the time. My impersonal manifestation is time. You cannot directly perceive time. And time is the cause, right? So in that explanation of Vedic causality, we saw that time is the first cause, you see. So everything is perfectly under the control of the Lord. And one man has this realization, one is not disturbed by any kind of material reactions, which he considers to be the mercy of the Lord. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one who knows the absolute truth in three features, Brahman, which is compared to the sunlight. Paramatma, which is compared to the sun globe. And Supreme Personality of Godhead, which you can compare it to the personality of the demigod sun. Right? There are 3 different levels of realizing the sun. Even if I don't see the sunlight, even if my windows is closed, in the morning you will see some light entering the room, even if you have the blinds which are covering the windows. So even if you don't go out and look at the sunlight, the sun can be perceived in the first stage just by the existence of sunlight. Similarly, Brahman is the effulgence emanating from the body of the Lord in the form of a light. And so that's the first level of understanding. The impersonalists focus on this. And Paramatma is a localized form of the Lord which exists in every atom, and also as Paramatma along with the soul in every body. So while the absolute truth is not just simply the light, but the source of the light, and who is present, localized in everywhere, that is Paramatma. So Brahman is just truth. Brahman means it exists everywhere, eternally. That is the manifestation of truth. But the Brahman does not have a form. And anything that does not have a form cannot contain knowledge, because knowledge resides within a person. The knowledge does not reside in a vacuum. But as soon as you give a form to that truth, which has a form, right? You're not giving a form, but that is a better and further understanding of the truth. So Paramatma feature of the truth not only is eternal, because Paramatma is eternal, he is not subject to death, but Paramatma, because is a person, has knowledge, and has complete knowledge, because Paramatma exists in each and every atom. With each and every living entity, Paramatma knows everything. In every nook and corner of the universe, it knows everything within the mind and consciousness of every living entity at all times. So Paramatma is both Sat and Chit. And then Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Sat, of course, because Bhagavan never dies, and is also a personality. So Supreme, right? Then you have personality. That means he, just like Paramatma as a form, a person, and is full of all knowledge, right? And then because he is an independent Purna Purushottam, Bhagavan is not localized, is full of also bliss. Paramatma, the bliss aspect is not fully manifested because Paramatma is neutral. Paramatma, when he resides in our heart, he's simply observing our activities. He's not implicated in our joys and pleasures, joys and miseries, apparent joys and miseries that we experience in this world. Paramatma is simply observing. It does not get implicated. It remains distant, it remains aloof. And so that Anand aspect is not manifested, right? And similarly is Atmaram, but in the form of the Purna Purushottam Bhagavan, with his devotees, he might sometimes apparently experience miseries. I said apparent miseries because in one way he's feeling sad, but that sadness is a manifestation of happiness. Just like if his mother is chastising him, he is crying. Krishna is crying, but he's expressing, but that expression of fear when his pure devotee is chastising him is just a different manifestation or bhava or rasa in devotion. So it's not the kind of so all experiences of the Lord, even one which are not appears joyous, even if those which do not appear joyous are actually manifestation of joy. So in this way, these are 3 features. So one who knows the absolute truth in these 3 features knows that what one's factual position is in relationship to the Lord. Any questions on this particular verse?
One question, Prabhuji. So we associate Sat with Brahman, Anand with Bhagwan. What's the understanding? Like, what should I understand when we say Chit is associated with Paramatma? Like, Chit means knowledge. So, but so are you saying Brahman, in Brahman there is no knowledge because there is no one there, like there is no form there?
Yes. So Brahman, there is no form, right? So it is truth. It's truth in the sense it's eternal, it's everlasting, right? But there's no, it's not a repository of knowledge. Neither the souls, who get liberated and they merge with the Brahman, they experience eternality. That means they're not subject to repeated death or change, right? Their existence is eternal, right? But they don't have much knowledge. They don't experience knowledge. They don't experience bliss. In the Paramatma realization, so you become like the one, we acquire the quality of the object with which we associate. So those who meditate on Brahman, they achieve Brahman. And they become Brahman-like. But the Brahman only has eternality. Those who meditate on Paramatma, the Jnanis, why are they called Jnanis? Because they once, by Paramatma realization, they achieve all the Jnana. They have perfect knowledge. And they achieve eternality. Because Paramatma is present in every soul. Is present in every atom. So Paramatma is not only eternal, but it also has knowledge. So Sat and Chit, both are present in Paramatma. And Bhagavan is Satchitananda. All three are present. That's why we say, what do we say? Ishwara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha. Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So Paramatma is manifestation of both truth and knowledge.
Knowledge. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes. Okay. Any other question? Okay. Verse number 29. Prakritir guna samuddha sajjante guna karmasu tan akritsna vido mandan kritsna vinna vichalayet. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached, but the wise should not unsettle them. Although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. So I think it's similar. It's just continuation of the idea conveyed earlier that those who are intelligent, they don't disturb. Right? Krishna already said that. He's just reiterating that in a different way. Instead, we should engage them in all kind of activities according to their nature, because you cannot expect everyone to directly come to the platform of knowledge. First, you have to start acting, and then in due course of time, with proper guidance and realization, they will come to the platform of knowledge. What's the other thing? The worst thing anyone can do is, you say because you are not acting on knowledge, you discourage them from that person from even acting. Rather, one should engage them on a moral platform, even if they are fruitively engaged, and then due course of time they will cultivate knowledge. So purport: persons who are unknowledgeable falsely identify with the gross material consciousness. That means, what is gross material consciousness? Well, they think that we are the body, and the purpose of life is to just enjoy. And because they identify themselves with the body, then all kind of different material designation comes. As soon as I say body, then okay, I'm a male, I'm a female, I'm a transgender, right? There could be so many other bodily identifications. You could be based on color of the skin, race, nationality, caste, right? So many, all different kind of designations. Then the education one has, position in the society, right, or in a corporation. So these are all manifestations from the primary misunderstanding that one is, that we are this body. So this body is a gift of material nature, and one is too much attached to the bodily consciousness is called manda. Here, manda means, in a lot of Indian languages we have this word manda. Manda, could mean somebody is slow, but also that is on a physical level. But manda also means an intellectual level, not very sharp, a foolish person or lazy person. Lazy here in the sense that doesn't have the understanding or doesn't have interest in cultivating the understanding of these spirits. So ignorant man, so it's not despising them, that's not the proper attitude. Despising such individuals, we're sorry about those situations, but it's not looking down upon them. But we are making the distinction. It's not that distinction to feel those who are in knowledge. Oh, I'm intelligent. It's not to cultivate a false sense of superiority. But we have that distinction so that we can improve ourselves, right? We don't want to be an ignorant situation. That doesn't mean that we have the false sense of superiority or we condemn those who are ignorant. Ignorant men think of the body as a self. They accept the bodily connections with others as kinsmanship. The land in which the body is obtained is their object of worship. Matru Bhumi. People, they have, of course, we have some affection for our land where we are born, so that is natural. But when that attachment goes beyond certain threshold where one is it becomes abnormal, right? One can be really deviated when one is completely in a bodily conception of life. So that is not healthy. Land in which the body is obtained is the object of worship. Only that is the greatest land. Why? Because I was born there. All other lands are not worthy, and so that becomes it's not a healthy consciousness. They consider formalities of religious rituals to be end in themselves. Very important point. So there are a lot of rituals, and the tendency of religions, if you see the history of religions, because of the ignorance of people or because of lack of sincerity, they collectively tend to become ritualistic. But actually, these rituals, they traditionally, and if you see in a structure where a guru is guiding the disciple, they will see at what level the disciple is, what the inclination of the disciple is, and they will treat each disciple differently. So the path of spiritual perfection for one disciple that is recommended by the guru would be different for the path that is recommended for another disciple. Just like a parent, when he's teaching the child, they will see what the child's limitations are, and based on that, different or the inclination or the nature, they will use different methods to teach the child. Or if we see even in public schools, right, you have different schools for those who are challenged or they're differently abled, right? So there are different means or methods by which one is cultivated. And the guru similarly, he looks at the disciple, and for someone, he might recommend a ritualistic way to engage that disciple in a particular schedule, in a particular form of training. And in due course of time, when one is regularized, that person, by the guidance, the disciple under the guidance of the spiritual master or guru, will get instructions on what is the purpose of those rituals. And rituals are as good even for those individuals for whose rituals are recommended. For some disciples, he might not recommend a ritual. For another disciple, when a ritual is recommended, the guru sees to it that it does not become simply mechanical, and that the ritual embodies the spirit that the ritual is supposed to encase, right? If the guru sees that it's just becoming mechanical and one is missing the essence, then an expert spiritual master will stop it. He won't engage that in further, right? But if you look at the history of the religions of the world, in their in their quest to do mass propagation, right? They try to generalize, and the same prescription for everyone. And one does not get that personal guidance of a guru, then what happens is that the religions, they just tend to become ritualistic. And then, over a period of time, well, people you see just they are doing rituals, and there is no spirit in those rituals. And instead of serving the purpose, it actually becomes a disservice, because those who are in that group thinking, they're kind of zoned in, and they overlook, and they are just going through the motions, and they don't realize what they have given up in due course of time. The essence is not there. But an outsider, when they look at it, they sense, that is, oh, these people are simply ritualistic, and they're not attracted by it. And that happens to all religions, because in people sometimes just join ignorantly. Like here it says, just because someone is joining ignorantly, we should not discourage them. Even if they are doing it in ignorance, let them do. In due course of time, by proper guidance, they will cultivate knowledge. And not everyone comes to the platform of knowledge, unfortunately, because of lack of sincerity or lack of guidance. And even if it is a bona fide sampradaya, if it is not a bogus religion, you will always see some segment of the practitioners who are because everyone's progressing. Again, we are not condemning them, but everyone is on a different level of realizations, right? Just like in an education system, it's authorized by the government, it is bona fide. Teachers are teaching, but not every student is sincere. Different students come for different motives. Some are coming just because they've been asked to come. So you cannot say that, hell, the entire educational system is bogus, the government's bogus. It's not like that. So similarly, even in a bona fide sampradaya, who is representing true religion and authentic, you'll find these tendencies for things to be ritualistic. That's just one example. There are a lot of other things that could go wrong. So again, we have to see how much sincere we are. We always have to question ourselves. Are we becoming simply ritualistic in this context, right? So they consider formalities of religious rituals to be end in themselves. So this is someone who is not situated in knowledge. Social work, nationalism, altruism are some of the activities of such materially designated persons. You can also add one more thing to it, which is, just being ritualistic. Of course, Prabhupada is not condemning that over here either, because at least that person is on a religious platform, right? It has a hope, even if one is engaged in a ritualistic way without proper spiritual understanding. Hopefully someday he will listen someone, sit in a class, or will be inquisitive of why I am doing this, and they will try to cultivate proper mode. So that's not condemned. Under the spell of such designation, they are always busy in material field. For them, spiritual realization is a myth. Because they consider themselves as the body, and the purpose of life as enjoyment. He says, what is this spirituality? It's just a way to control people. What did Karl Marx say? Karl Marx say, well, religion is the opium of the masses. It's just another way to be intoxicated. They're just living in an alternate reality. It's just a myth, or it's a way for those who are powerful to abuse others. And sometimes you will see that people in position, even spiritual authority, might abuse or take advantage of gullible people. That's why, again, we have to be intelligent. Just because somebody has a charisma or is able to speak nicely, we should not get influenced by just externalities. We have to see what is the real spiritual worth of that person. And so they are not interested. Sometimes they have these bad experiences, and so they simply blacklist the entire tradition just because that one person was there, was not up to the mark. But those who are sincere, they will go on, right? They will find the right path, the right association. They will be inquisitive. Just like Srila Prabhupada says, just because there is fake currency in circulation doesn't mean that all currency is fake. Rather, as soon as you say there is fake currency, it suggests that this fake is created in the image of something that is real. That means there should be something real, right? As soon as you say fake means you are acknowledging the existence of the real bona fide thing. Because as soon as you say fake, that means it's imitation of something that is real. So if there is no reality, then there is no question of imitation. Imitation itself means existence of reality. So in this way, by association or analysis of the negation, one can come to the conclusion of the existence of the absolute truth, or something that is bona fide. Those who are enlightened in spiritual life, however, should not try to agitate such materially engrossed persons. We should not disturb them. Better to prosecute, that means act, or performs one's own spiritual activities silently. Such bewildered persons may be engaged in primary moral principles of life as non-violence and similar materially benevolent work. So that is at least there on a moral platform. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. The devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men and try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which is absolutely necessary for a human being. You get mixed results with this approach. Sometimes people are happy, even if, sometimes they are agitated, but in due course of time they take up, or sometimes you are turned off more. So those who have taken up the missionary activities, they would go against this injunction and then they would engage in activities. Of course, we should not do it to the extent that somebody is really disturbed. Right, so evangelicals, like in Christianity, so evangelicals, their whole idea is to propagate the message of the Lord. But traditionally, the empowered acharyas were evangelicals also, but they still saw, like, whoever is willing, they can take it up. Just like Arjuna over here. Arjuna associated with Krishna for a long time as a cousin, as a friend. Krishna never spoke Bhagavad Gita to him, but when Arjuna inquired, that means he's ready to listen. So generally, people, we can increase the propagation and reach out to so many people, but only those who are sincere will take it up. Your outreach might increase, but the conversion factor still comes down to the real interest of the person. And so if you only approach those who are interested, then your conversion is 100%. But if you increase your outreach to 1,000, 10,000, then still only 3 will join, right? Because only 3 were interested. So that is always there. But the devotees of the Lord are even kind. He said, even if they don't seriously take up, at least once they heard the name of Krishna, once they, so they got benefited in that way, even if they did not take it up, even if they ignored. So in this way, there is Lord Chaitanya's movement, right? Why Lord Chaitanya did not go and actively preach them or present them the philosophy. What did he do? That's why his process is Nagara Sankirtana. He went to every town and village, and then he simply danced, right, and sang and chanted the names of Krishna. And then, people would come in hundreds and thousands, and they would just simply see the Lord in his form as a devotee. And he's just chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and they sound vibration from Krishna directly, right? Holy name of Lord. They enter their ears and they get purification. At least they come, get a pious credit in the sense that, just by listening the names of Krishna, all their past sins, they are all eradicated. So there's some pious credit that one gets. So in this way, the devotees of the Lord, they are merciful, even if someone does not take up. they engage in activities because they understand the purpose of the Lord. What is the purpose of the Lord? Again, in creation of the material world is eventually that the souls, they come to the right conclusion through their own experiences of the world, and as they voluntarily try to understand what is this all about, and they would eventually pursue self-realization. So that is the purpose of the Lord. Any questions on this? Okay. Bhagavad Gita, verse 30. मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यास्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशीर्निर्मणो भूत्वा युध्यास्व विगतज्वरः. Translation: Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. So Krishna is nailing the point again. Okay, what's the conclusion of all this? Well, you should fight. And while how you should fight, don't fight like an ignorant man. You surrender all your work to me. Why? Not just because I'm saying, of full knowledge of me, knowing my position. Not for your own personal profit. Not that, hey, I won't be able to enjoy this world because all my relatives will die. You're considering your own gratification. No claims of proprietorship. Even if you win, you don't think, oh, this is my kingdom. I'm supposed to enjoy, but I cannot enjoy, right? So you're not the proprietor. So in this way, you should fight. Here Krishna, my unto me, says. He's giving an indication. Krishna has not elaborated extensively on his original position, but he's saying my, he says to me, right? Because he's Bhagavan himself. Okay. Purport. This verse clearly indicates the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious, to discharge duties, as if in military discipline. Sometimes we say religiosity. Religion, because this idea of religious rigor. Somebody does it in discipline. Similarly, you will see in military also they have that rigor and discipline. Such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of living entity. Jiveshu Ruphoi Krishna Nityadas. The constitutional position of the living entity is to be subservient to Krishna. Not that Krishna is asking or demanding that service, but just rather service is the primary currency in any relationship, even as of a friend or a lover or a parent. Not that we expect something in return, but the service is still there because that's the currency, and that's how we express our love and devotion. So there might be some difficulties with in execution of, just like it's called the labor of love, right? We do something for our family members or relatives or friends, and for doing that service we have to assume some difficulties or challenges, but we don't give that up. Living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitution position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Same concept. A hand cannot be happy if he wants to enjoy independently and says, I'm not going to feed the stomach. And so the body is not nourished, and the hand won't have any energy. Similarly, we will be happy and nourished not by being separate from Krishna, but rather being situated in his association. Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord were his military commander. So Srila Prabhupada gave the analogy of military discipline. So here Krishna is that military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. So it's important to be engaged according to our nature, but not be engaged with fruitive mentality. We have talked this point in detail many times. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. He did not have to consider the, what is it? Arjuna did not have to consider the, that means he does not have to deliberate or think too much. I mean, in case of Krishna, he is directly there, personally present. Such like sometimes child, when he's confident my father has my best interest, right, or parent has the best interest, then he simply acts. So Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Chetas. Chetas is knowledge, or and what is that? Is situated in Adhyatma, or the self, or the spirit. That means one is not considering material aspects of benefit, profit, and that won't be Adhyatma. There would be Bhutatma, material things. Nirasihi means that one has to act on the order of the master, but one should not expect fruitive results. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself, and that would be criminal. So we might deal with a lot of paraphernalia and a lot of opulences and properties of knowledge and position. But if we, doesn't mean we have to give all that up. That is the misunderstanding that some impersonalists have. You reject everything. Rather, the devotees don't reject, rather they see everything in the association of the Lord. Just like the cashier, he is dealing with millions of dollars, but you understand, it does not belong to me. I'm just counting. Similarly, by the arrangement and the mercy of the Lord, we might have so many opulences, but we don't claim false proprietorship over it. Rather, we see that, hey, this is provided by the Lord, and in due course of time, it will go away. And as long as I have, because it's Lord's property, not my property, I'm more cautious that it is not wasted and it's properly engaged. Just like the cashier would be more cautious that, hey, maybe if it's own money, if he might be a little relaxed, if I lost a cent over here or misplaced, something is not accounted for. I thought I had $200. I'm only able to account $180. What happened to the remaining $20? And then you don't find it, and then okay, maybe it's all right. But if the same money is of the organization, then that person is even more careful. Oh my God, if somebody does an audit, what will happen? Those $20 are unaccounted for. So you see there's a difference in consciousness. Similarly, when we see everything in the relationship of the Lord, we are even more cautious. We don't claim more false proprietorship. Rather, we are careful that it's utilized properly in the service of the Lord and not for one's enjoyment. That is the real purport of Mai, or unto me. When one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly does not claim proprietorship over anything. This consciousness is called Nirmama. Mama means mine. Nirmama is absence of mama. That means nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, strict order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen in bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. So it's based on bodily identification, meaning there are other hindrances that are coming, which is obstructing our clear spiritual understanding that we have to give up by application of philosophy that we have learned. And sometimes we forget, then we go back and read, oh, in that particular verse, this explanation, this was explained, I don't remember exactly, but let me go and read that again. And so what happens by application and revision of that philosophy, your intelligence becomes sharp. Just like a knife, right? We have to rub the edge of the knife on a sharpening stone, right? and then the knife remains sharp. So our intelligence have to remain sharp. So when a situation comes, we know how to act, right? We know how to discriminate, which is a function of intelligence. But how do you keep intelligence sharp? By regularly reading Bhagavad Gita, or immersing in that philosophy. And sometimes we forget, which is natural. Then we go and say, I'm not able to overcome. But now, because you have heard and read, you know where you need to go and look for that information. He says, I'm not able to apply. I don't remember the exact details of what I heard or I read, but I know that can solve me. I just have to go and revise. And so, but now because you have studied, you know where to go to look at. Just like when we go to our bachelor's degree or program, right? And we are taught so many things, and we're kind of almost bombarded. And most of us, I think we do not recall what we studied. Somehow we prepare for the examination and we pass the grade, right? Or even if we remembered up until the point of exam, then we have forgotten. I don't remember anything. Not anything. I do remember something, but a lot of it we hardly use it, so it's gone. But depending on when the profession that you take up, right, and if there are relevant concepts that you're going to apply, then you say, I need to brush up on some of that. But because we have gone through that vigor, right, that of that education, that coursework, we know where to go and look. And because we are already primed, it's not like you're starting from scratch. And though it might appear that we have forgotten everything, as soon as we go and revise it again, it manifests quickly. And we might be able to understand it better than the first time we read it, because we have changed in that duration of time. And so our perspective to look at things has changed. And so we get more meaning out of it. And same thing, every time we come back to Bhagavad Gita and read, we get newer and newer meanings and more realizations. So everyone according to his quality and position has a particular type of work to discharge. It's very important. We have talked about this at length as well. And all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness as described above, and that will lead one to the path of liberation. Any questions on this? Okay. Verse number 31. Ye me matam idam nityam anutistanti manava shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchyante te api karmabhihi. Translation: those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from bondage of fruitive reactions. To execute duties according to injunctions, my injunction, Krishna is saying, they will follow the teaching faithfully without envy. And so envy comes as soon as we have fruitive mentality. We have this envy. I want to achieve. I should achieve. This person should not achieve. So when we act with proper consciousness, we don't get implicated in the bondage of those fruitive results. So here matam, he says, ye, those who my instructions, nityam manavaha suttamantanustanti muchyante. Okay. Purport. Injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the essence of all Vedic wisdom, and therefore is eternally true without exception. So Gita Upanishad. So Upanishads are commentaries on the Vedas, and they provide the essence. And then Gita is also Upanishad. It provides the cream of the cream. So even if we have not studied all the Vedas, just by studying Bhagavad Gita, we get all Vedic knowledge. It's the essence of all Vedic knowledge. So Vedas are eternal, and whatever Krishna is speaking, the essence of that Vedic knowledge is also eternally true. So this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. one should have firm faith in this injunction without envying Lord. And so the envy that we exhibit toward other living entities is manifestation of our original envy towards Krishna. Why Krishna should enjoy supremely? Why I should not enjoy also independently, right? And so this is our playground to be an independent enjoyer. And so now with the same mentality, because we want to be that enjoyer and to be the proprietor of everything, that means we have to deprive others, right? So there is a competition in this world, and then this is how we develop envy towards everyone, which is a reflection of our original envy towards Krishna. And that's why Srila Prabhupada is saying over here that we should not envy Krishna. So somebody said, well, I'm not envying Krishna, or I don't even believe in God. What are you talking about? Why are you saying I'm envying Krishna? So even those individuals who are agnostics, it's just another way. It's not explicit. Yeah, it's implicit. But many times, envy is also manifested by not listening to someone's opinion, right? Like sometimes in our office environment, we see if some people are envious of an individual, whatever that individual has to say, they would reject that idea. They would never be in agreement with that person because they are envy. It's a manifestation of envy. So here, not following the instructions of Krishna is also a manifestation of that envy. Sometimes people, even without thinking through or analyzing it, they just on face value, they reject it. As soon as they say Sri Bhagavan Vacha, you pack your bags and move on, right? You don't want to listen anything beyond that. So, but those who are intelligent will at least say, okay, what you have to say, right? You're not saying you blindly accept, but you use your intelligence and do some discrimination, and you neutrally analyze if this message is worth listening. So one manifestation of envy is not following or not willing to listen. So there are many philosophers who comment on Bhagavad Gita, but they have no faith in Krishna. So even apparently, superficially, they say, "Oh, I know Bhagavad Gita. I like to read, and I even give commentary or talk about it." But then they misinterpret because of insincerity. Because the consciousness is like that. It's not that they are deliberately with a evil motive. They're saying, oh, let me twist the meaning over here. Krishna is saying this, but I want to twist the meaning. It's not out of deliberation, but because that envy is deep rooted. It's a very subtle layer. They don't even realize. It just manifests, and they think, oh, this is the right interpretation, but their interpretation is wrong. It's not that they have an explicitly evil purpose, but it just is manifested because of the deep-rooted envy towards Krishna. So they will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive action. But an ordinary man who has firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, and even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. And that's a very profound statement. Because that person does not have envy, so he's accepting the instructions of the Lord, right? He says, oh, I agree with it. And for whatever reason, one is not able to execute. One might feel sorry also that, hey, I'm not able to do it. But because one is sincere in purpose, is properly situated, and one becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. Now, of course, we don't use as an excuse that, oh, I don't need to act on it. I accept it, but I don't need to act on it because for whatever reason, if you do it out of lethargy, then it's not good. But for there are real reasons and constraints where we are not able to do it, and we feel sorry about it. That means shows that we really want to follow, we really want to execute on it. but circumstantially we are not able to, then the Lord is kind, and he sees the essence, right? And then one is not implicated just because one is properly situated in the consciousness. So in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. It's simply a matter of time, right? So one does not give up the path, not the process, does not resent, and is not hopeless, is not able to execute in the beginning, and the time interval for everyone is different. We all have our own. As I said, all students cannot be expected to. It's not an assembly line that you mass manufacture, just like you manufacture iPhones, or it's not like that. They all come in exact shape and form and size, and they have the same production time. It's not like that, right? We are all individual persons, which are all at different phases of our journey, and each of us are unique in how we learn, how we apply, and even the time that we take to learn. So it's that beginning phase or the initial phase for some people might be slow, or others might be fast. Apparently, ultimately, it's all slow because you've been stuck here for millions of lifetimes, and so in one lifetime is nothing, right? As in terms of absolute percentages. So we should not become hopeless, and we should be very patient and have faith in the process, and we'll definitely achieve perfection. Any questions on this verse? And we only 4 minutes left. Let me see if we can cover verse 32. It's small. I think we can cover it. Ye tva etad abhyasuyanto nanutistanti me matam sarvagyana vimudhamstan viddinastan achetasah. Translation: but those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings, do not follow them regularly, are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. So abhyasuyantah, out of an envy. Abhyasuyantah. Anutistanti. Na anustistanti means they do not systematically and regularly perform. Why? Out of envy. As opposed to previous verse where it said, you should anusuyantah, without envy one should act with faith. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that circumstantially, if one is not able to execute, then it's all right. Krishna is not saying in the translation, but Srila Prabhupada says that, but with purpose. See, but in the next verse, Krishna is saying one deliberately, out of envy, is ignorant and does not regularly perform. So that person is vimuda, perfectly befooled. And they are nashtan, they are ruined. Achetasa, that means they are not properly fixed in proper consciousness. Okay, so the purport Srila Prabhupada mentions, the flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Godhead, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as well. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the Personality of Godhead due to vacant heart. Vacant heart means the heart is not surcharged with proper knowledge. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him. This seems like a very harsh statement, and one might question whether the Lord is supposed to be kind. And then why is he so cruel, right? So sometimes people ask this question, and just like in Christianity, they, at least in the way it's conveyed, it appears very, it makes no sense, right? Where they say, well, when somebody simply now not all Christians say that, but at least certain preachers, they present it in this way that it does not make any logical sense, and shows the God in a very bad light. Well, simply by believing that Jesus died for our sins, one achieves heaven, where they can enjoy, not that there's service, a very materialistic conception of heaven, a place of enjoyment, and one achieves that eternally. And just because someone does not accept that Jesus died for everyone's sin for the rest of the eternity, will be condemned to hell forever with no chance for redemption. So is this something like that? Somebody might question. Well, it's not. Krishna is not saying here in the sense that, hey, if you follow me, if you believe in me, I'll reward you and you will be liberated, and if you don't, then I'll condemn you to hell. He's not saying out of his personal accord. He's not saying in that fashion. But what he's saying is he has given us independence. So first of all, we need to understand is that he's kind. He created his world because he wanted to enjoy independently. As a Paramatma is present with each of us, and he's neutral. He does not take part in either our joys or pleasures or miseries. He's aloof from it. But in his heart, he really wants us to come back. And because he is not a despot, right? Someone who says, forces you have to act in this fashion. He's not saying like that. And that's why he has given us the independence to explore things on our own. And he's provided all the arrangements of material body by which we can pursue our desires. He's provided food, shelter, and all of these things. So he's absolutely neutral. But what this means, he's not saying that he's not saying in the sense that you will be punished. It's not a punishment. But what he's saying is that this is a path by which you can quickly learn. If you don't follow this path, you will be you will be put into situations by which you will be forced to re-evaluate your perceptions or worldview, right? And that's what it means by material bondage. The one is implicated in material bondage, saying that, okay, I might have a perspective that bad karma is all right. I don't have a conception of bad karma. They say, okay, you think this is all right to hurt others, for instance. And one is put into that situation not because God is sick and then he likes to see us suffering in misery. Rather, we are put into that situation by which we can reevaluate. If we think that, is it all right? And okay, now is it all right? Like, by experience we learn. Similarly, people think, okay, there is materially motivated morality, which is nice, to be moral. But then you say, if we think that this is the absolute truth, then we get good reactions from that activity. But when to enjoy that good reactions, again, we have to assume body, which is again subject to birth, old age, disease, and death. And then we again reevaluate. We are forced to reevaluate that, hey, is this the ultimate purpose of life? So in this way, each of us might learn at different points in time, in different situation. But karma is, God does not differentiate between good karma and bad karma. There is no duality in Krishna. Good and bad is something that we ascribe to. Just like government makes no distinction between, say, social security benefits department versus the department of correction. For the government, both are important equally. The government say this is for the service of people. But because the citizens, they say, oh, prison is bad, right? And the benefits department is good. So the good and bad are ascribed by us. But the government does not make any distinction. Similarly, the bondage, in good karma and bad karma, this duality is ascribed by us. And so we say that the Lord is not saying good or bad. He's saying, from his perspective, he's just saying, well, this both of them are opportunities for the souls to reevaluate their perspective until they get it right. So, and just to make sure that we understand this in proper perspective. I think we can end the class over here. It's already 8:34, but I can take any questions anyone has before we conclude verse number 32. Okay, looks like there are no questions. This will conclude the class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.